Well, I'm about to mention a few points that we've been discussing right now, so that's a great transition. But I will spoke mainly about interacting with Liquidsoap script over HTTP, and I wanted to provide somehow the code examples I've been missing while doing that. I think it's worth sharing, and everybody wants them, so you will have some in the next 25 minutes. Just before that, to give you a little bit of context about what I am working on. So I'm benevolently working in a community radio. So the Liquidsoap script is running on that machine you see on the picture. We need to have a screen showing what's currently playing in the studio. The studio can take over the program over Liquidsoap and so on. And we've been running that way for 4 years now. And so it's a stack of three components. So there is a Liquidsoap script, ShowerGel, which provides the user interface. That's something I presented 2 years ago, and bits for the music library, and it's been working great, I have to say. And the core of the radio in the Liquidsoap script is this kind of fallback operator. From the ground up, we just say that the top priority is the input hardware. So when you want to get live, especially out of the studio, we can also hand over to another radio stream, and then there is a big switch operator of pre-recorded shows. So this is a switch between playlist over folders with very simple time conditions. And I have to say that it does broadcast the programs at the right time, unless one of them, unless everybody is respecting the time frame, of course. And well, most of the time it's running on the auto DJ using a request, dynamically picking songs in the bits library. You add to this another fallback, but this time this one is track sensitive. So between tracks or between sources, even if we switch between sources, it will broadcast a jingle, because we have to do it from time to time, but there is a delay to ensure that we don't always broadcast a jingle. So that's pretty stable, I have to say. Really, it's been stable. The broadcast, the result is very correct. So it's been pretty fine, but it's not that perfect. The first thing is that so if you want to change the program, for example, the playlist program, if you want to change the time where a show is broadcasted, for example, you have to edit the Liquidsoap script. And it turns out that this is a barrier to many people. For many people in the radio, they are kind of afraid of even editing a text file, because after all, it's the production script, so they're a bit afraid that it might explode. And we have this problem even if we have examples. There are plenty of examples in that script, and sadly, that's still not enough. Another problem is that we are using classic playlists, so Liquidsoap playlist over folders, which means that you have to put those songs in the folders. And we can do it by physically accessing the machine. We also provide a local network sharing, so you can do that inside the radio premises, but that's still not enough. That's fine, though. Everybody has been pretty used to that, and it's nobody made a mistake. But, well, with some people would like to have something to do it over the internet, especially. And one last technical problem we have recently is that ShowerGel did rely on Telnet. So there's a Telnet protocol and server open on the Liquidsoap script. And every version of Liquidsoap is slowly moving away some features from the Telnet, which is, well, I can understand that because it's a very old and particularly not structured protocol. It's even slow sometimes. So that's fine with me, but it means that we have to discuss somehow. We have to find a new way, and this way might be the HTTP harbor. So now we have a new operator where we can register endpoints. But before we dive into that, I just wanted to mention the different architectural options you have when implementing that in Liquidsoap. There is one possibility, which is serving everything from the Liquidsoap script. That would be pretty elegant, and it's possible because, for example, you could serve a single page application over the static endpoint, because a single page application is only the static files and HTML and JavaScript that will run inside the browser. So the user browser will discuss directly with the Liquidsoap script. That is possible. That would be nice. That will not be very secure, I think. In particular, you could harass the endpoint and maybe break the radio. Also, I don't think that would be easy to develop. Usually we need interaction with a database, and well, that's not easy in Liquidsoap yet, maybe. So there could be another option. That's the one I did with ShowerGel before. You just add a classic web application in between. So then you get the very classic web environment, database framework, and so on. That's pretty fine. Because everybody speaks HTTP, you don't need a message queue or anything like that, especially between the web application and Liquidsoap. But still, if you have a single web application, that may be brittle, because if someone is trying to a denial of service on the web application, well, maybe it won't be able to schedule songs into Liquidsoap. So I ended up with this architecture where I'm using two web applications. One is the public application, the one that is open to the internet for end users with the HTML interface and everything. And the second one, which is, well, you could say it's a backend service. It's what I call here the scheduler application, and it's again a web application, but this one is only here to drive the Liquidsoap script. So I still have the very classic web development environment. I'm doing this in Python. The playout is completely isolated. So if, for example, if you lose access to the internet, or if the web application is out for some reason, the scheduler can still work and broadcast. We still don't have any message queue. Everybody speaks HTTP. That's the same protocol. The only downside is that there is one or two endpoints that are repeated between every application, but that's okay. So I'm currently rewriting the project as a RadioZ, and another special aspect of RadioZ is that there is one Liquidsoap script, and it should not be editable by the end user, even by the administrator. We could say that this is less flexible, but I think that the scheduler part leaves much flexibility. We'll see how. But the best thing is that it's much easier to update, because the Liquidsoap script just comes with the application, and I think in the end that should be much more reliable. That was quite an introduction. Sorry, it's a bit long, but I thought it would be interesting to provide some context. So let's see the script. So the next code pieces you'll see are all from the RadioZ.liq, the Liquidsoap script I'm currently working on. And the radio core is very similar to what was behind ShowerGel. We still have a track insensitive priority list, so we still give the top priority to the live shows streamed from the harbor or maybe relaying from another stream, or maybe, so I renamed this cards, that's the pre-recorded shows. So you just have to push something, and now this is a queue. The big difference is that I switch everything back to request queues for the card, the auto DJ, and even jingles. So that means that we have to push something into these queues, and that's the role of the scheduler application. On the Liquidsoap side, it looks like this. So there is a function to register a handler behind an HTTP endpoint. So the scheduler has to post to /q/jingles, for example. And it will be handled by this function. So we get the queue name from the request object, as it was given from the calling browser. The convention is that we post JSON, so we can have something structured between the two processes. So in that case, we are pushing the path of the track, obviously. We are forcing the artist title and the sound ID. I'll get back to this. And all of this is transformed into an annotated request. So I think that was an answer to a question that was asked just before. You can write the annotate with a -- and just give the fields you want to see, and you will get back all this in the metadata. We'll see that later. And then you just, in the end, you provide the path to the track. So you can create the request with all these annotations, and this track will be annotated with all of this metadata that we'll get back much later. We push the request to the queue, and that's it. Then Liquidsoap will continue its flow and broadcast this track right away when it's its turn. On the other side, this means that because for example, if we are pushing a card, maybe we are broadcasting live at the same time. In that case, the card you are pushing will not play. So we are also tracking the way around using the onMetadata operator. Every time there is new metadata coming in from Liquidsoap, we record it in the scheduler so we know what's playing. So the metadata is the classic metadata you get in Liquidsoap, except that the title, artist, the sound ID are back from the request we annotated before. We also add some what used to be fields provided by Telnet, but I kind of recreated this. So there's a on-air just to track when this was playing. And I will get back to this operator in the next slide. But I'm still tracking the source that is currently playing and posting this to the scheduler application so it can, just log it into the database. Oops, sorry. So I need to explain a little bit how I'm tracking the current source ID. Basically, it's a trick around transitions. It's just a reference, so it will refer to the name of the source. And the main fallback, so here this is an addition to the fallback between jingles and programs, but the main fallback also use a transition. It's just that because it's stacked, the actual function is a bit more complicated, but you get the ID here. When you fall back from one source to another, you call this function, and by the way, we track the ID of the source that we are transitioning to. So that way we have a global variable that is always able to say which source is currently active. So that's fine with this fallback architecture, but it's very useful to debug things also. Normally, I'd like to also add some crossfade here. So shout out to an issue, by the way. I think this one deserves a bit of attention, just in case. Another important feature is to have the Liquidsoap process report back to the screen in the studio so you can know what's currently playing, and this one runs every second. Every second we are posting back to the scheduler, which will post back to the web application and back to the browser, so that's a repeated post and get. And it's posting a big JSON object, reporting back the current source. Also the remaining time, that can be helpful to prepare the next track, for example, especially for the auto DJ. The elapsed time, because that's usually useful, the time just to be sure. And I won't have time to dig into this function, so I also added one function that is reporting about the state of each content queue, so that the scheduler can know if, for example, the auto DJ queue is empty, so you should add something, or the way around, maybe something has been sleeping in the auto DJ queue for hours, and now the kind of music we want to broadcast 3 hours later are not the same, so we could empty the queue and push something more up-to-date right away. And again, this is posted to the scheduler. So far I've mostly showed post endpoints, but doesn't have to be. You can implement get methods, delete, put, any kind you want. For example, here, that's the endpoint behind the skip button. It issues a delete to live, and this is transmitted to the skip operator on the main source, so you can skip the current track when it's playing. That's useful sometimes. Just a warning for fellow web developers: be careful that request is a Liquidsoap module. That's obvious, but I've been in that trap more than once. Many web frameworks in other languages are writing their handlers with request and response arguments. So initially, I've been writing exactly this. The problem is that then the request is the request object, the HTTP request, and usually when I'm writing request.create with a path, that's a Liquidsoap request. So just to be sure, the convention I have chosen was to always use rec and res, the shorter version for the HTTP endpoints, so now everything's fine. To conclude quickly, a word about the impact on all layers of the application, from the developer to the listeners. Starting with the developer. For the developer, I think this architecture is really comfortable because you can either push information to one other service or pull information from the service. That means that any process in the radio can trigger and get information at any time it pleases, depending on the events that are coming in. And that's very great to develop with, I have to say. You can have the information flow between applications, and it's pretty fast. Another very cool thing is that Liquidsoap can parse YAML files, and the web application also can parse YAML files. So now I have a single big YAML file that is configuring everything, while all the administrative admin side parameters. And this file is configuring the 3 processes. In particular, it is defining the HTTP port, the address, and things like that. There are many more parameters, of course, but this is a very simple example. And I also added a very short token, because even if the scheduler and Liquidsoap applications are listening only on localhost, you still need a little more security just in case. So for example, if you want to make a query to the scheduler process from Liquidsoap, You have seen so far the post to RadioZ function. It looks like this. It's always a post. It's with the correct headers, so it's always in JSON, and it's always providing a token that comes from the configuration. So that's a very simple wrapper I did around http.post, so you can, because everything is a bit constant here. Same thing, the scheduler address comes from the configuration. That's very useful too. So there is authentication when Liquidsoap is sending requests to the scheduler, but that also happens the way around. When the scheduler makes a request, it has to provide the same token. So this is how you can implement this kind of authentication in Liquidsoap. You just add a middleware, an HTTP middleware. So basically, that's a function that will take the requests, maybe change the result, and pass these two to the next operator that might be in the chain. So middleware functions are stacked all together and calling next one after the other. So you can, again, check that the token from the configuration is in the HTTP headers. We have a common authentication for users, for end users too, because users have the ability to log into the web application, and they can log into what they can broadcast on the live stream. So they can use the same user and password, username and password, where in the web application and in the HTTP harbor, so they only have one password to remember. I think that's important too. And for the listener, well, it works. The cool thing about this architecture and this priority of in the fallback is that it sounds like things you would do in the studio. In the studio, you would push tracks one after the other, sometimes with a jingle. If there is a show coming in, they just take the air. If that show is running late, then the next one is late too, all the way around. If they are too short, the auto DJ kicks in. So that really feels natural. The only thing on the scheduler side is that the auto DJ always have to have one track in the queue just to be sure that maybe the current track is too short. But aside this, it's working I wouldn't say it's precisely on time, but it's sub-second precision, so that's very great. One last thing, so Romain, you were asking about a few features. I would ask for very simple things on my side. I think that it would be interesting to somehow know the path of the Liquidsoap script. So we could write exactly this line. That's something inspired from web frameworks. Usually when you save a file, you reload the application and you get your result on screen right away. So there is file.watch and there is a restart function in Liquidsoap script right now, but we are still missing the current script path. For now, I hacked something aside, but that would be nice to have something automatic. When developing, this is very cool to test something, some new things. Another thing I'd like to have is the ability to log a bit like a web server. So you could have an access log in a dedicated file with the request, host, and IP address. For now, I added a middleware that is tracking also the duration of each function. So you can say that, oh yeah, we like a delete on /live and we return 200 in a few milliseconds. That's nice. That's already interesting, but it's I don't know. It would be interesting to have it in another file also. And just to be sure, for security reasons, having the host and IP address might be interesting, just in case. But overall, I wanted to thank you for Liquidsoap. It's been running great, I have to say. It's really reliable. we have to test every version before putting it on air, but it's been really interesting because we've been able to do anything we wanted with Liquidsoap, and thank you for that. And that's it for me. Thank you for following this presentation. I hope you have some questions. I did not have time to follow the chat, sorry. But what happened on this one?
No, thank you. There was a lot of comment. YAML was the big one.
And yeah, and Bastonist was like, well, I don't want to rewrite my own REST wrapper for Liquidsoap, so maybe I was thinking that you would like just spill the bean or give a repository at the end, but you have like some kind of wrapping of all your REST functions on a public repo or something?
Sorry, I didn't hear you well. Say it again.
Do you have your somehow REST wrapping of Liq functions in public repositories? I'm not really interested, but I think Bostonis is looking forward to replace Telnet by
yeah. So that's on this slide. So RadioZ is currently on the source hut, so you can find everything at this URL that is on the on the slide here.
I was clicking on it.
But, well, there is not much wrapping, actually. The big difference is that the scheduler logic, and especially the broadcast planning, happens on the web application side. So that means that there is a scheduler working, well, it's based on kind of a cron tab. And that one is able to wake up at some point and say, oh, it's time to push that show. And then it's just an HTTP request. So there is not much wrapper involved, actually. It's really small, and that's nice.
Yeah, I think he was more interested, but well, I'll let him ask the question. But I guess he was more interested in the general communication between the Liq processes using HTTP endpoints.
It's been I have to say, it's been a pretty, well, after the first attempt, it's been pretty fun because, well, it was, you just need to, if you have those examples, for example, that would be a good start. I really missed this initially. And then it's just writing HTTP requests. That's pretty simple, I have to say.
Will you keep on maintaining shower gel, or are you switching to RadioZ?
No, I'm switching. I'm switching because, yeah, I've already given up on expecting people to edit the Liquidsoap script. I think it's not that easy. It's a very special logic, and it will be very hard to explain. So instead, I think that with the RadioZ architecture, instead I'm switching everything to the web application. And the idea is that in this application, you can set especially timing constraints that are much more, I hope, easier to understand for end users. So, and also it's more flexible for me as a developer.
Yeah, seems like the restart or hub or whatever signal we could use to restart Liquidsoap, like people usually do, probably the way I do it, that having a top level Liq process, the one you say that shouldn't be editable and stuff, but maybe we can have something, but I guess it's harder to write than just have a fallback on top of it.
Yeah, you could consider this maybe to define output. Outputs will be fine, but the general scheduling logic is really hard to grasp. And yeah, I mean, it took me much time to, and many experiments after all. So, yeah.
Do you mean the Liquidsoap scheduling logic is hard to grasp?
Well, if you only have some queues and fallbacks and something very simple, but the problem is that you need to know what exists. What you can do, and Yeah, there's one thing I did not mention with the RadioZ or Showergel, by the way, is that, for example, they are not precisely planning their broadcast ahead of time. And that really follows the Liquidsoap logic of just push sound, and it will come out in the broadcast somehow in the order. But this is I found out that when trying to explain this to newcomers, this was usually unintuitive for them. Yeah.